Good afternoon, everyone. Mwanyamwamba here, the founder and project manager of the Paideia Project. Today, I thought about making this video to just talk about what makes the Paideia Project a climate action initiative, because I get this question a lot. So I'm just going to talk about that and a little about our affiliations in the past with WWF UK and WWF Zambia. So as you all know by now, the Paideia Project is an education management and education initiative that develops interactive visual aids from recycled material and creates and improves structures in schools to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So the story of the Paideia Project, as you all know by now, started from my high school. That is where I created the interactive visual aids, which are the blueprint of what we do now. So when I did create the interactive visual aids, then the talk that was there concerning climate change was about the depletion of the ozone layer, which was really scary for me. But I decided to make the interactive visual aids using recycled material as a way to communicate to other pupils about the climate crisis that was happening in the world at that point, which was a depletion of the ozone layer. So it was about, can I make these interactive visual aids using recycled material to say, okay, this is how we can actively contribute as young people to what's happening in the world. So that is why the interactive visual aids were created using recycled material. Of course, those visual aids were created to help us with our academic subjects, but it was important for us to use our stories, which at that point was a lack of visual aids for us to use as pupils and for our teachers to use as well, to help make learning easier for us because of the teacher to pupil ratio, which is a challenge in most education institutions. So these visual aids were created to fill in that gap, but the visual aids were created using recycled material because of the bigger problem that was happening in the world at that point concerning climate change, as I said earlier, with the ozone layer depletion. So it was about making an innovation that's environmentally friendly, and with that, of course, you are bringing quality education, but you're also bringing climate change awareness among young people and the rest of the world. Fast forward to today, climate change is still a big issue with the high rates of deforestation, pollution of our freshwater or seawater, a rise in carbon emissions, which leads to extreme weather patterns, a rise in diseases. As we know, bacteria easily spreads in hotter climates, a loss of our water tables, our rainfall patterns are distorted, our animals are dying, people are dying, our economies are heavily affected because of climate change. To that effect, I made a video concerning how climate change affects me as a young person growing up on a subsistence farm, where our once prosperous dairy farm is no longer prosperous anymore. And this is a crossroads that most African countries are faced with, and our lack of resources makes it difficult for us to thrive with what's happening to the environment right now. And there began my affiliations with WWF UK and Zambia. The video is titled "Climate Change is an African Problem, It is My Problem Too." And the crossroads talked about in this video is that Africans are heavily dependent on agriculture to have access to basic needs. So with the distortion of our rainfall patterns and the loss of our water tables, an African is going to cut down a tree, produce charcoal from it, and sell it so that they have access to the basic needs that they need to support their families. But for someone in a first world country or a second world country, they have an option because they have access to technological support and financial support, which most of us do not have. So I talked about a river that flows in my area where people benefit from it, but they also harm it. So that's the crossroads that most Africans are at, because we do not have a lack of technological support or financial support to help us better take care of our environment. I was selected by WWF UK to present their very video during their Youth Changemakers conference in October 2020, in which David Attenborough was premiering his series called A Life on Our Planet. Listen, if you're a climate change activist or an aspiring climate change activist and you do not follow his work, I recommend that you do because it's exceptional. My take home from the entire conference was that climate change affects us no matter where you live. I mean, there were people that were talking about how the melting of the polar caps affects them. Others were talking about how the loss of the biodiversity in our oceans affects them. And there I was talking about how it affects me living in Africa. So this conference was just a group of young leaders coming together, using their stories to bring awareness to the climate crisis. And that's my affiliation with WWF UK, of course, through the Paideia Project. For WWF Zambia, I was invited for the New Deal for Nature and People conference organized by them, which happened in November 2020, and it highlighted the high rates of deforestation that Zambia was experiencing. At that point, Zambia was the 5th highest in the world and the first in Africa, which was concerning. And of course, as a young climate change activist, I did ask the right questions to the various stakeholders present and the different government officials present on how they should involve more young people when it comes to developing solutions, because we are the future generation, so climate change affects us the most. Apart from this, I was chosen to represent the young people of Zambia at the House of Chiefs here in Lusaka at the Cabinet Office to petition the various chiefs on how they could actively participate in lowering the rates of deforestation in their various chiefdoms. And of course, apart from petitioning them in my presentation, I did talk about how climate change affects me by highlighting the very story I did talk about before concerning how climate change is an African problem. It is my problem too. If you haven't watched the video, please do watch the video. And of course, the chiefs did jump on board to say they would do their best, of course, with the active support from the government, and of course, with no interference from the government or other stakeholders regarding them being the protectors of those natural forests. So because of this work with WWF Zambia and WWF UK, and of course with the Paideia Project developing interactive visual aids from recycled material, I was nominated for the 2021 WWF International President's Award. I didn't win the award, but I was really happy to be nominated because I was picked by just different climate change activists in the country, so that was a big deal for me. So I mean, I'm happy for everyone else to see how the Paideia Project uses recycled material to develop their interactive visual aids, and I'm looking forward to just your participation as volunteers, as visual artists, as climate change activists. Let's continue talking about climate change. Thank you for watching.